Greetings, 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 everyone, and welcome to another edition of Create Yourself Imagery, Intimacy, Innovation, a place where people from all walks of life and various backgrounds come to share their transformative personal and professional stories of restoration, confidence, clarity, and empowerment. They are here to share their helpful tools, resources, and affirming guidance. I'm Joyce Kyles, your global speaker, author, trainer, and coach. And if you're ready to transition, transform, and thrive, this is indeed the podcast for you. I have the pleasure of being able to introduce this week's special guest. I had an opportunity to meet her maybe a couple of months ago at a networking event and just instantly gravitated to her message, her story, how she came into the work, and just immediately thought she is a Create Yourself guest that I must have on the show. So I am going to yield the floor to give her an opportunity to share a bit about herself and, in the way that we do in our podcast interview fashion. We're just here to have a conversation and I'm so excited to have her as a guest. So I am presenting to some and introducing to others none other than job exit strategist Tania P. Brown. Tania, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it is so my pleasure. Well, hello everyone. My name again, Tania P. Brown, job exit strategist, and you may be wondering what the heck that is. So, as a job exit strategist, I am passionate about helping women who want to leave the 9 to 5 to become self-employed, create a plan, a strategy. So when they are self-employed, they do not go broke, get into a pile of debt they cannot afford to pay back, or worse, have to abandon their dreams to go back to their old jobs.
So now you all immediately see why it is that I said this is a must guest, must have guest on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And you know, one of the things that we talked about when we met was that journey of transitioning out from the 9 to 5 into entrepreneurship. And I I believe that I did share with you that I did not necessarily plan when I left my last employer. I just kind of jumped out there and did it. I don't have any regrets about having done that because, everyone's situation is unique and different. So I don't necessarily have any regrets about having left. But having said that, for those who have been on the fence, they're thinking about it, they know that they're ready to pull the trigger. They know this is something that they want to do. They don't want to abandon their dreams. So, with that being said, what are some of the first steps that a woman needs to take when they're thinking about, yeah, I'm ready to make that leap?
So I always tell people when you are planning the leap, it's not really the leap you're planning for. It's for the 2 to 5 years you are going through what I call the self employed gap life. That is that season when
Mm,
you don't have the corporate income, but yet you don't have enough business income coming in to help support you. That
mhm, mhm.
is what you're planning for. So, with that being said, the plan is to get your finances, to take all the resources you have around you and use that to help build the foundation that is strong enough to withstand the impact that self employment can have on someone's finances. So I walk people, I have a thing for, if you know me, alliterations and acronyms. So I walk people through an acronym I call READY, and that is
Okay,
a 5 step planning process.
I love that. So, without giving away too much, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about what Ready is.
Sure. And I'll back up for a second. So, how I came about the Ready method. So, started off my career in 97 in banking, which, oh my gosh, I can't even believe it has a nine in front of it. One of the nine.
I know.
Saying
Sometimes
that,
you're in this for so
I know.
long, you think back like, wow, how did I get here? So, yes, let us backtrack just a bit then and talk about your create yourself journey. How did you get
Okay.
here?
So, Yeah, it wasn't pretty. So, grew up poor. Did like I was not one of those people who grew up in a household who talked about money or a household who talked about credit or anything. All I knew was people who had money were either corrupt or lucky. That was the extent of my training. I did not hear savings, checking, banking, none of that. Joined the military. This is 93. Back in the day, if you just knew credit cards maybe had seen it, they would just throw them at you. So I got as many as I could, ran them up. I don't know if I had a go home or go big or go home mentality, but I got into debt pretty quickly. At that time, if you do not um, pay off your debts, they send everything to your commander. So I feel so sad. I feel so sorry for this person. Please remember, I was in my late teens, standing before my commander, like, yeah, pay my
Wow.
bills. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
care.
wow, wow.
Yeah, so
Yes.
his punishment was I had to create a debt payoff plan and a savings plan. None of this clicked. I was just happy I got off that easy.
Mhm.
So fast forward a year, grandmother dies. Because of that plan, I could afford my funeral expenses and I could pay for my mother to go to the funeral. That was the connection between the choices and decisions I make with my money. My behavior means my ability to live my values. That
Mhm.
is when the connection hit. Left, went into banking. This is 97. But from banking, I realized, okay, beyond checking and savings accounts, how do I help people truly build wealth? That's when I got into financial advising. We're talking the early 2000s and kind of moved through the financial service industry from there. Started consulting with corporations on how to help their employees build out programs. And from there, I started to hear a pattern. So in my career, I've probably coached 2,500 people. So after the first 500, I started to hear I
Mhm.
want to quit my
Mhm.
job, but I noticed people were hitting the same pitfalls. At part of this journey, I was also the small business chair of a local chamber of commerce, and I would
Mhm.
see people, new businesses coming in. I would see the same mistakes with the new businesses. I would see the same mistakes with people, and it slowly was clicking that there's something off here, but I didn't quite know what it was. Well, with all of the consulting, I was exhausted and I had a management that truly believed your career comes before your family. So I had what I call the performance review from hell. And that is when I went to my leadership to say,
Mm.
hey, I'd like to take time off to close on my house. They were like, sure. But when I got my performance review, I was dinged because that decision was considered a lack of team spirit.
Oh,
But here's the
wow.
thing, because of what I did with my finances, it wasn't a matter of if I can quit. I was just like, okay, do I quit my job now? Do I save up? And in there, I realized I had a privilege of choosing whether to do this that most people didn't. That's when it started to click. And then when I started my own business, I had all of this information and I still struggled. And I realized there's just not enough information out there beyond the highlight reel of our culture of self employment about what it's really like. And there's all these
Right.
micro steps that people
Mhm.
were missing that really, in about 6 to 9 months after starting, they are broke and basically having to get a job. And I just did not want that for people. Plus, when I looked at the statistics for Black women, frankly, it was abysmal. The good is we are almost number one, if not the number one ethnic group starting businesses. But some statistics have us as high as 80% having to quit within the first 12 to 18 months, and only 4% still being
Wow.
in business after 5 years. And money was at the heart of it. So that's when I
Mhm.
realized if we don't have this concrete way of planning your finances for this, your finances are going to fall through the cracks of the impact of self employment. So, all of that combined, hearing the same thing over and over again, is how I came up with the Ready Method. And again, the Ready Method is simply my 5 step process that walks people through how do you create a plan that can withstand that season between no income and still trying to earn business income. And also, what are these overlooked areas that people keep avoiding? So that was the ready method. So happy to go and kind of do a quick overview of those 5 steps if that would be helpful.
Yes, it would. But before we get to that, let us just, I just want to sit with what you shared before we get into the
Mhm.
ready method, because you brought up several very important points. We have a grandson that'll be starting college next year. And what you shared about being a young person, credit cards being thrown at you, all the things. I can remember when I was around that age, 17, 18, 19, and you're starting into college or in the military or what have you. Yeah, people just want to throw you those cards. And when you're that age and it's not being talked about on a regular basis about how to manage what finances actually look like, we have this mentality of free money, and we don't think about the planning and the preparation and the rainy days and that type of thing. So just that alone, I wanted to lift up because many of our listeners do have, young people that we are raising children, grandchildren that, and then, honestly, some of us as adults, we always say it's never too late to start again where we are. So that's why we need people like you that help us to, reframe and to take a step back. Okay, this is what needs to be done, and that a plan needs to be put in place. So I wanted to definitely lift that piece up. And the other part of, I cannot stress enough the statistics that you shared. They are really disheartening. As a woman of color who is in business for herself and, still putting some pieces together myself with it because I did not plan and do things in the order that would have made more sense. To my credit, if you would call it that, I did have a spouse that, was able to support and still supports me, us, the household. So that gave me somewhat of a privilege, if you will, using your words, that um, a lot of people don't have. So even with me having the support system of a spouse, there's still those financial responsibilities that I have as a woman. And so with you sharing all those points, I'm doing some introspection, and again, this is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. So thank you for your insights, for your candor as you're sharing and talk about your own experiences and how you're helping to educate other women to be strong and self-sufficient and sustainable. So with that said, please do share a high level overview of what Ready is all about.
Okay, so with the READY method and that 5 step program, so the READY is an acronym, and I'm hoping everybody can hear me. I have my earphones on. There's
Yes,
whatever
you're
reason, all of a
perfect.
sudden is laughing. Oh,
You're
that's great.
perfect.
I'm so glad. The R is to review actual spending. And this is what I found. When people want to quit their jobs, they're using fantasy numbers or what they think they spent. And I'm like, this is the one time we need to know real numbers, because that number is going to be everything from how long your savings will last, how much money you need to break even on your business and cover your bills. But overwhelmingly, I find this is a number people guess at. So I had to end up putting in here, please review actual numbers. If you don't know where to start, look at your past 30 days of spending. And then try to use that number to begin to get to how much money you need to transition. The E is evaluate debt landscape. So part of this is looking at your debt, and you make the decision. I am not going to tell you you should pay off all your debt before you start your business, but I will tell you it will make being in business a lot easier because you need less money. But make that decision, know your debts. The other part of that, and this is what a lot of people don't think about, is have a vetting strategy. What will you use debt for versus what you won't use debt for? What role will debt play in your business? Because if you don't have a strategy, your emotions will create one for you, and you will find yourself about $20,000 in debt at the blink of an eye. When you think about all these coaching programs,
all of these different marketing programs, it is insanely expensive. So I encourage people before they, what I found was your employer has the richest set of opportunities out there, but I feel like people are so bitter that all they see is how much they hate their job. And what I see is strategy.
Mm,
And I
mm-hmm,
tell people, okay, your employer, this isn't a place you go to that's taking up space and preventing you from becoming self employed. Your employer is now a strategic partner because the three main skills to build is marketing, sales, and accounting. If you are able to get on any teams at your job that allows you to build those skills, those are insanely transferable skills. If your job allows you on the job training to learn any of this, if there's a skill that can help you, take advantage of it.
mm-hmm,
Also, reviewing your benefits, maximizing your benefits, and a pro tip, do not quit until you had your actual doctor's appointments. I have dealt with
mm,
women
good.
who only made, when you finish your appointments, they made the doctor's appointments, turned in their resignation letters, and then needed surgery. And now they don't have a
Wow.
job, they don't have
Mm-hmm,
healthcare insurance, and they have expensive plans. So we walk through a transition strategy. Another thing, and I'm hoping people do not do this, please take anything business related off your personal computer. Because depending on your policy, that can be considered the company's intellectual property. And if they're bitter enough, they will sue you for it. So then we
wow.
have the
Okay.
B, and that's term and business needs. So, what do you need in order for the business to be legal? What do you need for the business to be efficient? And as a side note, when I started my business, I didn't even have a website. The first thing you need to do is just to go talk to somebody and find out if they're even interested in your services, your products. But so many people spend so much money on elaborate websites, elaborate marketing, and they hadn't even talked to a single human being to even know if their product is viable. Is this something people not only need, but will pay for? Additionally, accounting. Have some way of keeping track of your expenses. Because if you're not keeping track of your spending, then how are you going to put this on your tax return? If it doesn't go on your tax return, it could be potentially a lot of money you're not able to deduct, which means you are paying too much taxes on your income because you have nothing to deduct. So even if you have a Google account with receipts, of course, you can have a spreadsheet, but think about that in advance. And then finally, we have the why, and that's your safety net. A lot of times I'll get, how much money do I need to save? And what I tell people is, instead of thinking of it as a large number, think about it in terms of buckets. What are the buckets that your money needs to do to keep you both stable and sane while you're in that gap between your last steady paycheck and business income? So the first thing is keep the lights on money. How much money do you need? So because you did that first job and you know your actual spending, you can determine if you want to have 6 months of expenses in that bucket to keep the lights on, or if you want to have a year. The second thing is add deductibles. I have young adults and they've now realized life doesn't work the way they think it should. So they'll be like, Mom, life be lifing. Well, we need life be lifing money. So at a minimum, have your deductibles. Have your home deductible, your car deductible. So if those things happen, you don't have to pull money from your living expenses for those things. The other is what I call evaluate your upcoming spending. And
Mhm.
that is, when you quit your job, you're still going to have a wedding anniversary. Your kids are still going to have birthdays. Christmas is
Right.
still going to come. Plan ahead a little bit of a buffer to cover those expenses. Or if you have an anniversary trip or a reunion, because if you don't, you're going to go into debt. And then finally, please remember, if you don't have income coming in, you're paying for your business expenses out of savings. So we've got to throw in extra money to cover those bare minimum expenses. And if you find that you have more money needed than you have, then that's when you can get creative. This may be a part time job while you're still working. This may be finding work that doesn't take as much of a mental toll, but you can still build your business. So there are lots of creative ways to do this without just taking a leap. And this is kind of what I walk clients through.
I am just in awe. This is such great information. The nuggets that you are sharing, the systems that you use. And I think that is so important that we think about not just, okay, I'm going to leave and we'll just see what happens. It's the planning, it's the process that you carry, that you take your clients through. And I love this ready method. I'm a person who's big on acronyms as well. So I love that you have this laid out so well. And we've had some others who have been here to talk about different aspects of financial wellness and management. And I talk a lot about wellness and include financial wellness in that piece. One of the things that you mentioned that I'm so very appreciative of is that you said, even if, say that the money is not coming in the manner that you desire it to. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon your dreams
Mhm.
of continuing on with the business. It's just a matter of becoming creative. So I'm really hoping that our listeners will take away from this, knowing that it may not always just be as a friend of mine says, just rose petals and everything is flowery all the time. There may be some lull, especially when you're getting started, but you don't have to have all these elaborate things, right? You don't have to have
Mhm.
a website and, fancy business cards and all of the cute things when the most important thing is to have clients that you are serving. So just you shared so many great nuggets that it's so important that we get out and we actually talk to people, find out whether or not,
Mhm.
the services that we're offering are the services that are needed because you
Mhm.
may be able to offer what you do in a different way that is going to meet the needs of the client. So I just I love all these things that you are sharing. Um, I think what I would like to pivot to is to ask you, I already can hear a lot of the gratifying parts that you've enjoyed, but if you would share with our listeners a little bit about things that you found the most gratifying, and then some things that you're finding that are most disheartening when it comes to your work.
Uh, What I find the most gratifying, oh my gosh, make me tear up. I love when someone finally feels there's hope to do this because so much of social media is about just take this leap, I call it into the abyss of poverty. And not everyone has the tolerance for that. So to let them know, hey, you don't have to take a big leap. This can be strategic bunny hops. But if you're looking for a job, we're talking about a bridge job, and its purpose is to get you to self employment. And when the light bulb goes off, I didn't even think about that. And it can be designed their way. And it could even be a couple of jobs if needed, part time work. So that's the most gratifying part is when a light bulb comes on and they feel for the first time this is doable. The most disheartening part is when I talk to people who didn't come to me and I sit here, talk to them 6 to 9 months later, and they are desperate. And a lot of times they are in tears and they've ran out of money. And by that point, we're in crisis. We're not in planning. And it breaks my heart because sometimes this is just so preventable. And I just truly, I'm a person of faith. I'm a Christian. For I believe if God is calling you to this, finances shouldn't be the reason why you got to hang up. So I want to make sure that this is done in a way that you can fulfill the purpose because your calling is the answer to someone's prayers.
And I know that anyone who is listening to this broadcast, they know your heart, they know your passion, uh, your purpose. As a person of faith as well, I truly do believe that this is a calling for you and that the women that you have been able to connect with and serve have greatly benefited from taking that walk into your purpose and using your examples of your own lived experiences and being able to pour back into others. I always think that's a beautiful thing when you're able to do that and you walk in it. And certainly anyone who is listening to you can hear the passion that you have for service. And let me not I do believe that you primarily work with women, but if there was a gentleman who came up and said, you know what, I was listening to the podcast and I need her help. Do you also work with men?
Absolutely. Yes, I predominantly work with women, but I am here for anyone who has this passion to move beyond corporate, but they just need help getting there. So it's genuinely my joy to just serve in that purpose.
Well, I can hear it in your voice, that there's definitely the personal elements to it all. But I've also looked at your bio, and so with over 2 decades of experience, that you have offered invaluable financial guidance to thousands of employees at Fortune 500 companies, and that your insights have been featured in prestigious publications such as Forbes, Business Insider, USA Today, Market Watch, and Bloomberg, where she shares her expertise to help others thrive. So, not only do you have the personal lived experience, but you definitely have the professional credentials to back up all that you are sharing. So, I just thank you for taking time to share and pour into all of us. And I am definitely putting myself at the top of the list of the us. Appreciate it. So, as we wrap up our time together, what main points or encouraging words would you have for our audience to take away about our Create Yourself conversation today?
If God is calling you to this, trust the process. It is not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense to anyone but you. I have learned the hard way. I'm not inviting everyone to the party of my calling. If it's specific to you, it's not going to make sense to other people. That's one. Two, people mean well, but a lot of times their critique really masks the insecurity for what they themselves don't have the courage to do.
Mm.
So you're going to have to build that resilience to hear negative stuff, but just remember a lot of times it's their insecurity.
Oh, such great gems. I hope that people really take that in, especially the last part,
Mm,
because everyone is not supposed to go on the journey that you're on. They weren't called to that assignment. That's why that
mm,
assignment was given to you. And, if we allow the noise of others to interfere with his plan for us, he will take that plan and he will give it to someone else because his word has to go forward. His plans and his mission has to go forward. And so I want to always show up in obedience and operate in a spirit of excellence. And I know that just listening to you and you sharing, the more that we talk, the more conversations we have, the more that I see him showing up in you, in your work, and that you are working and operating in excellence and in your purpose. So I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to meet. If you would, please share with our listening audience the best ways to connect with you, because I know there's someone listening who needs, wants, and desires your services.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. And I always tell people, let's have a conversation. So I do a free 30-minute consultation. So in that consultation, I want to get to understand what do you want to do? What does this look like? Where do you feel your barriers are? And if my services can help, great. If my services can't help, I've been around, as you can tell, since the dinosaur age, or as my children lovingly say, oh, Ma, you've been around since the middle of last century, and that hurts. So can point you in the right direction. Go to my website, taniapbrown.com, sign up for a consultation. The other thing on my website, I have a free quiz, and that quiz is, how financially ready are you? The great part about this is it's only a few questions. It shows you where you are, but for where you are, if you're ready, if you're kind of sort of ready or not ready, I give practical tips to help you get there. And that's at my website again. And I'll spell it out because my name is spelled weird. TaniaP Brown.com. And you can find a link to sign up for a consultation as well as the link to go to the quiz. Thank you.
Listeners, you cannot beat that. Tania is giving you a wealth of information, no pun intended on wealth, but a wealth of information today. And the fact that she has a free 30-minute consultation that she gives you so that you can find out if if you all are a mutual fit for one another, and if you are wonderful. If you're not, she's already letting you know, yep, this may not be the place and space for you, but I do have, this is another option or another opportunity. I mean, a free quiz. You just can't beat it. You just absolutely cannot beat it. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And as I say each and every week, all of the information on how to connect with our guests are always listed under the Connect with that guest on the site so that you're able to readily access how to connect, stay connected, and not just for you. I always ask that, share this information with people in your circles of responsibilities, because this may not be something that you need in this moment, but I can guarantee you, you almost always know someone who this benefits. So if this particular service is not in your scope right now, share it with your circles because it's a need. And we went even deeper because this didn't just talk about what it means to be financially, sustainable when it terms in terms of leaving your 9 to 5 and going into entrepreneurship. We talked about what it means to just walk in excellence in life. And that is what I so appreciate about this particular podcast today, is because we're talking about systems and processes and getting on track. So I want to thank you so much, Tania, for being a guest on our show today. You are truly a job exit strategist that I hope and pray receives abundantly more than what you could ever fathom for your business. So may your business grow 1,000-fold.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, as always, each and every week, I say to you, thank you for showing up for me. Thank you for showing up for yourselves, because without you, I could not host this podcast. So, as I always say at the end of each and every show, thank you for tuning in and to continue to move forward and create the life that you desire and deserve. And remember that you can do it at any age. Let's continue to transition, transform, and thrive together.